Israel has thought we can be as bloody minded as we want because what really matters in the end is two things is force and American backing. And if we can win on the force side, America will back us fundamentally because America fundamentally is about force also. And
Hmm.
so I think they have thought, well, it's true. Every one of our wars is gone for shit, if I could put it that way, from Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, uh, Iraq. Yeah, it's all terrible. You know, the whole region is in flames. But we're still winning, basically. We're winning. There's no one that can stand up to us. And if we can just get rid of Iran, the rest, the flames will die down and we will be in control. And I think that that is the Israeli calculation that, yeah, it looks bad. Of course, it's bad. Lots of people dying, hundreds of thousands, millions, whatever. But in the end, we're still winning because force is the point and America still backs us. What I think is wrong about this is first, the force isn't really winning because these flames are not tamped down. And if it's true that America has seen its limit, which I think is likely to be true, that is a major jolt that Netanyahu did not gamble on, and it's not just Netanyahu; it's the whole Israeli extremist leadership. And what is really serious for Israel is that they have lost the support of the American people. And that was quite an operation to pull that off because the American people, for many, many reasons, for many, many decades, were overwhelmingly supporting Israel, and it's over. And it's not going to come back. And so this is the most fundamental point. Israel does not even have the backing of its only remaining sponsor right now. And that is amazing. When you see major politicians in the United States, not political entrepreneurs pulling on public opinion, but incumbents running against Israel, this is something we haven't seen basically in Israel's history. And I have told the Israelis, I told them the second, I mean, in an interview that I did with Har, it's the second week of the war. I said, you're going to destroy Israel if you go ahead and do it this way. And I had a little face-to-face little argument with the Israeli ambassador to the UN a few weeks ago. And
Danny
I,
Denon.
yes, and I said to him, you know, my line isn't, you're homicidal. I could have said that. I said, your country's suicidal. What you're doing is devastating for Israel.
Yeah.
And he did not like it, let me say. But in any event, I don't think that this is a kind of great tactical, keep them fighting, we're better off. I think that this is really I mean, it's bad for everybody. I just see it as lose, lose, lose. I don't see it as lose and win. This is just terrible. I just believe war is disastrous in general, and this is another case of that. As for China, um, China is extraordinarily clever and well governed. And the main thing China has done since decades is no war. Uh, and that will continue. And what they've done with the no war is invest, 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 invest to the point where they dominate most industries of the future now.
Yeah.
So while we play around and listen to Trump's taunts and claims about being the hottest economy in the world, China owns the future of the world auto industry because it's going to be electric vehicles. They own the future of the world energy industry because it isn't going to be oil and gas. And so China's just been extremely clever and biding their time and being quite serious, not threatening anybody, and not. It's not right to say they duck these issues. They're they're for peace and they're also not exactly doing what a cover of The Economist magazine depicted a couple of weeks ago, the famous line that when your enemy's making a mistake, don't interrupt them. Uh, China's not happy with this war. China's
Yeah.
not happy with any of the wars. Its vocation is technological excellence and being the largest manufacturer in the world.
Yeah.
And it would like peace on that basis.
Yeah, they can't trade max if there's no stability, if there's war.
That's it.
China has obviously made attempts pre-October 7 successfully to implement a ceasefire between Iran and Saudi Arabia. China receives the overwhelming majority of its energy needs from the Persian Gulf. All of that transits from the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, this is a major problem for them. So, my question to you, Professor, is: do you believe that China could be doing more in terms of aiding Iran to ensure that Iran has an upper hand, or do you feel as though China is actually also telling Iran to restrain itself, as some have observed in this process?
Yeah, today is a very weird, peculiar, interesting day, and it's hard to sort out exactly where we are. But Trump backed down from a renewed attack. Uh, he claimed not to back down from the blockade on Iran, but whether there is such a blockade or not is being heavily debated by the hour right now. So it could be just Trumpian rhetoric that is pretty vacuous because there are also reports of large numbers of Iranian vessels that are coming in and out of the Gulf. So I have to say, it's not precisely clear by any means what's happening now, and it's even less clear what will happen. But what I would say is the following. It looks right now, maybe, that there's a quasi-equilibrium, a fancy term, which means this is not stable, but maybe this can go on for a bit, that enough oil and gas will pass through the strait that the price will stay at around $100 a barrel, which is where it is right now. If that happens, it's bad for the world economy, certainly, but it's not a catastrophe. It's not a collapse. Had Trump attacked last night and the oil fields and desalination plants had been destroyed, and that was looking like it could really happen, and maybe still will happen, the price of oil would be at $140 a barrel today and heading higher. So there may be right now a tacit equilibrium in which Iran's going to collect some tolls. It's going to restrict some passage. Maybe every few days the U.S. Navy will do something demonstrative to corral an Iranian vessel. But both sides will avoid, I may be dreaming, by the way, but I'm thinking that maybe both sides will avoid worse. And at $100 a barrel, the world economy survives, though people feel pain, but it doesn't go completely into devastating crisis. If that's the case, nobody will do heroics in that case. That would be somewhat open Strait of Hormuz. De facto, maybe not in Trump social, the true social, but de facto. That could go on for a while. It actually could go on for quite a long time. Iran would probably not want to break that by bombing somebody and inviting a new round of war. So that's one possibility for the foreseeable bit. Of course, it would be much better if there was actually some kind of real understanding to close this thing. That's what we should have, but that's quite hard because the legitimate answer for Iran is that the United States close its bases in the Gulf, that Iran has security. Ultimately, at the core of all of this, well, again, not at the core of all of this. There are two strands that are feeding into this. One is an American three strands. One is an American revenge strand for 1979. One is an American delusion, let's control the world oil supply strand, which is very Trumpian. And the third is the Israeli Greater Israel plan. We need to dominate the Middle East so we can beat the shit out of anyone we want to beat the shit out of. And the answer to that is the real answer, because that also would get the Israeli instigation of American wars and of their own wars stopped, and that is a solution for Palestine. I happen to believe either the two-state solution or a one democratic state solution. Either one's fine with me, but the two-state solution is the one closest to international law, and I think it should be implemented, and I think it would be the fundamental path to peace, because so much of what's happening is to prevent that from happening. But I don't think that Trump is smart enough, politically capable enough, with a team enough, able to maneuver American politics enough, able to shut down Netanyahu, Smotrich, and Ben-Gvir enough. All the things that a real American leader would do. I doubt that even if he wanted to do it, that he knows how to do it. That's the problem.
Yeah. I have two questions. One, Trita Parsi has said that the current limbo state that we're in with the quasi-open Strait of Hormuz, is it open, is it not open, with the double blockade, has given an opportunity to the United States of America to pull back, to retreat without going up the escalation ladder, while still while still refusing to abide by the Iranian terms. So there's almost a quasi ceasefire without a real ceasefire being implemented. Trita suggests that this is actually not so beneficial for Iran, although they avoid utter catastrophe or having their bridges and their power plants blown up by the American military, and then going back into a state of war with the rest of the Gulf nations and Israel, crippling the global energy markets entirely, which would apply more pressure to America and force America's hand back to the ceasefire table. They don't get the demands that they have, even though they have additional leverage at this point, demands such as sanctions relief, which is the ultimate goal of the Iranian side. I also happen to believe that the primary focus here in terms of restraining Israel is to drive a wedge between America and Israel to a certain degree by using that leverage. I think that's one of the key components of the ceasefire, one of the most difficult ones to achieve as well, considering that I think that there is somewhat of a divergence between the Israeli interest and the American interest here. Like, Israel has its own ambitions and is
absolutely
and definitely has the most pliant administration, the most pliant American administration they've ever had, demonstrably so. One that's crazy enough.
Trump has said it. The Israelis pitched it to every president, but I'm the only one that took the bait.
Yeah. Do you also feel as though this is not so beneficial for Iran if there is this quasi ceasefire that's implemented with the potential American blockade on top of the Iranian toll system that's implemented?
Yeah, well, look, I'm a believer in general that actually peace that is negotiated and formalized is mutually beneficial to two sides. I don't believe peace is a win-lose. I believe peace is a win-win if it's well negotiated. So any situation like this, which is just a kind of limbo, to my mind, is not as good as one would get if one had a structured, serious outcome. And so I agree with Trita, the characterization that this is a kind of off-ramp without calling it an off-ramp. Maybe, again, we'll see tomorrow. Everything could be changed. But as of today, that's what it looks like. And that's much better than what it could have been. And as I said, it's livable for everybody. Not great for anybody, but livable for everybody. If what Trita means is, that Iran should press the advantage somehow and force, not settle for this, but force the hand of the United States to come up with the better outcome. I don't know if that's possible. What I believe is the right thing to do is that Iran has put forward a 10-point plan. We don't hear or see much about it. If there is such a plan, which I believe there is, something was published. It looks like there is such a plan. I mean, it's, again, we've seen it, but just to formalize that, Trump, once upon a time, a couple of weeks ago, said, well, this is the basis for a settlement. I would like to see the Iranians say, well, Trump said this is the basis for a settlement. Here's our 10 points. We want to discuss this. And if the United States is ready to discuss this, I still wouldn't do it, by the way, face to face with the United States. I would do it in a multilateral setting. I don't trust the U.S. to negotiate at all face to face. They keep killing people that they negotiate with. But I do believe that it would be possible to put the 10-point plan on the table again, which Trump, in his way, in a True Social post said, is the basis for negotiation. And if the United States says, yes, we're ready to negotiate on that basis, that would be better than this limbo right now. And that's what I would like to see Iran do, because we could get something that is a better outcome for the U.S., a better outcome for Iran, and, I have to say, a better outcome for Israel, but not for Greater Israel. I don't believe in Greater Israel. I believe in Israel living in its borders of the 4th of June, 1967, and an agreement on that basis would secure Israel, and it would secure Palestine, and it would secure peace. So that's what I would like to see.
I was going to say there's different schools of thought here. But one of the things that I have thought about is like, how could this be beneficial for America as far as like generating leverage against China? Because as we both know, China has the nuclear trade weapon, export controls on rare earth minerals that are necessary for the American defense industry and necessary for pretty much everything, right? They have almost complete monopoly. America and the Western world currently has no contingencies against that. They have attempted to develop refinement in places like Australia, I believe, but there is no way for the Australian market to compete with the Chinese one as it stands currently. So my assessment, if I were to try to figure out if there's any logic to what Donald Trump has done in the Gulf so far, which obviously undermines the petrodollar, undermines America's force projection capabilities, has been a spectacular defeat overall, has actually forced our allies in the Asian Pacific region to reconsider how American security contracts look like. God forbid, a similar situation to the Gulf happens against China. It's over for many of these countries. They're going to be a lot more restrained about leaning into American defense going forward. Very beneficial for China. However, is there a positive side to this from long-term American interests? What I've been thinking about quite a bit is the Venezuela action. Venezuela has heavy crude, different refinement, but we do have refineries in the United States of America. The processed Venezuelan heavy crude has the largest known natural oil reserves in the world, if we are to believe the assessment there.
Yep.
Before the Gulf was completely shut off, Venezuelan crude being refined in American refineries would have actually destroyed the small business fracking that we have in the country. Now, with the price of oil barrels going up to $100 and more, do you think that there is an opportunity here for America to become the largest oil exporter to try to make up for the additional lack of supply coming from the Gulf? Do you feel like this could be one way to try to generate leverage against China which currently needs the Strait of Hormuz to open so they can continue getting their energy needs met from the Persian Gulf. Do you feel like America is trying to reroute all of the oil by taking over Venezuelan crude and become like the single largest exporter of oil, which includes sending oil to China instead of
So,
straight?
so if I understand the question, first let me say I do think that part of the idea of the whole operation was to control the world oil markets, and the idea was that the United States thinks in its mind, especially post Venezuela, but in general, that we can tell oil producers in the Americas where to send their oil. It's not true, but let's just say that that's the Trumpian mindset. We control the Americas. They thought we somewhat control Russian oil because we turn on the sanctions, off the sanctions, and they kind of work. Not very much, but to an extent. And third, we'll control the Gulf. And again, I think the premise of the operation was one day, kill the leaders. Now we control Iranian oil, and we're back to a comprehensive hegemony of the oil and gas in the Middle East. And if you consider all of America's influence, that's a lot of leverage. And China probably was, in some notional sense, targeted by that. Now, the operation failed, and China will continue to get oil from Iran and from the Middle East. And the quasi-equilibrium or limbo that we talked about is predicated on the idea that enough will flow to keep the oil price at around $100 a barrel. If that's not right, if the price starts rising because there's really a big shortage and the shortage becomes more and more intense, I don't think that limbo is going to hold. We're going to go back to a shooting war or an end of the blockade or something else. So if there is this limbo that holds, it's because the price of oil and the supply remains okay. I mean, less than before, higher price, some pain, but not crushing pain. And China will not be destabilized by $100 barrel oil, but it would be destabilized by something far worse. So I don't see the current situation as somehow, leverage against China. In general, I just have to be clear, I am a Sinophile. I don't have any idea that we should be, I don't believe we're in any way threatened by China, that we should be attacking China, that we should be trying to limit China. I think the whole thing is like the board game Risk, not the real world. So the whole idea of winners and losers is either video games or, since I'm so old, I used to play board games with physical plastic pieces or actually little wooden pieces in the case of Risk, if I remember correctly. But the point is, I don't even believe this is a legitimate idea. I think the whole thing is farcical and tragic, stupid, let me put it that way. And I don't think China is that we have that leverage, that we turn on and off China's development or its friends or anything else. So I find the whole idea very, very naive. And I don't believe the U.S. has these choke points, which everyone loves to talk about. I don't believe in any of them, by the way. I mean, you're right. If there are any choke points, it's on China's side right now. Not the other side. China doesn't actually want to deploy those choke points, but it will if the United States gets too ornery. All of this is to say, yes, there are people that I do not regard as very clever sitting in our government, gaming out how to hurt China, no doubt. I think it's a pretty ignoble job. I wouldn't assign it to graduate students. I would not, or undergraduates. I would not think that it is going to be successful. I notice that most issues of Foreign Affairs magazine now are about economic warfare. I find the whole thing absurd. I mean, not just absurd and sad, but dumb, not accurate, not realistic, not on the likely to succeed, replaying the Soviet containment policy 80 years later in a very naive way against very, very different conditions.
Yeah.
So all of this is to say, I don't think the current limbo is anti-China, but if oil prices were to really rise, which they could, this limbo will not hold. Something will break. We'll go back to war, or we'll get a real agreement and we'll end the blockade and we'll get a real opening. Something will give if oil prices continue to rise significantly.
Yeah. The reason why I asked that question is not because I think it's a smart play or
Yeah.
it will be successful. I'm just trying to make some sense of what America has done thus far, because it seems so ultimately senseless that, like, if there was any sort of materialist interpretation, materialist analysis here as far as like what America is trying to do as far as its like long-term plan, as it openly says it's trying to wage war against China,
Yes.
our largest trade partner and the manufacturing hub of the entire planet, which, as you also pointed, is very different than the USSR in a very meaningful way, because we've designed this intricate international trade system, and therefore we rely heavily on not just China but the entire Asian markets, and therefore blowing up the Gulf, which provides energy to the entire Asian markets, is a disastrous outcome, and will have many domestic issues that we're already seeing unfold right now, even though America is a little bit more sheltered from the immediate impact. Obviously, it's going to come back as far as like a major inflation crisis when different components that are being manufactured in the Asian markets are unbelievably expensive, and therefore American goods, American commodities are expensive as a byproduct of that.
You know, your question is very good, but I think that I do think the answer is two things. One, the United States made a bad mistake, and I'm just talking about the prediction of outcome. They didn't understand. Second, all of the analysis and all of the gossip and all of the people that I've talked to say that this was Trump's decision, almost alone. So what I see in this is not only kind of a dunderhead decision based on the Venezuela model, if I could put it that way, but also a complete collapse of decision-making processes in the United States, which concerns me a lot. Even things like the National Security Council, interagency assessments, the Director of National Intelligence sidelined. None of it shows what I would regard as a rational process. What we have from all good inside accounts is Netanyahu selling a bill of goods to Trump, Trump buying it, and all the sycophants in the room saying, okay, I'll back you, Mr. President. I don't agree with it, but I'll back you. And Congress dead. So presidents used to consult with congressional leaders, by the way. Even when they were being imperial presidents, they consulted with the heads of the armed services committees, with the heads of foreign affairs, with the Senate and House intelligence committees. None of that happened here. There was no process. Trump is a Dumbo, and he's really collapsed the processes of government. And Hegseth, you know, it's indescribable what this guy has done, and he fired a lot of generals along the way, and nobody seems ready or interested in standing up. Joe Kent did. He said, I resign. But other than that, nobody in Congress in Trump's party said, whoa, this is, except Rand Paul, but I mean, no leader in the party said, come on, are you kidding? What the hell are we doing here?
Yeah. Anthony Blinken has said, and this is one of the only instances where I agree with him,
Yeah.
that
Quoting Anthony Blinken is really something. So go on.
He said this is a game of bullets, and it's a game of capital, and I happen to agree with him on this, where ultimately we're either going to run out of bullets or missiles, which we have diminished a big chunk of our stockpiles for near peer and peer adversary nations like Russia and China. The very fact that we're still using standoff munitions implies that we haven't actually established air superiority in the way that Trump likes to claim. And the other aspect of this, of course, is the markets. Do you believe that there is going to be a situation where there's enough pressure from the markets that Donald Trump has to reconsider? And what is the financial engineering? I'm not an economist. I don't understand this aspect of it. But what is the financial engineering that makes this this hard commodity that is necessary for survival, as a global commodity with inelastic demand, so malleable to Trump's ridiculous manipulations?
Yeah, I think the point is at one point it seemed that it was an attritional argument to who will run out of munitions first. But I think what we see is something a little bit different, which is that Iran has a credible deterrent, which is if you attack us, we will destroy the Gulf.
Yeah.
And it's going to be then the biggest cataclysmic economic crisis for everybody, and we're going to do that. And I think that this is now an argument about deterrence, not about attrition, because there didn't seem to be any way to stop Iran from destroying the desalination plants or anything else. And since they're fighting for their survival, it's quite likely that they would do so, and totally understandable.
Yeah.
So I think that that's what has come out of this in the end, which is that not only could Iran close the strait, but they could do something much, much worse. And no one had an answer to that. And clearly, there was no way that this bombing had degraded the ability to respond, and no reason at all to believe that it would have done so. And the same happened last summer with the first round in June 2025. Iran was not so degraded. So a ceasefire was called after 12 days. And I think that that is the fundamental point. The United States cannot defeat Iran without blowing up the world economy. And Trump doesn't want to do that. Thank God.
Yeah. Well, so far, there's also
so far.
there's also not
right.
Enough troops that the American military might even have to engage in a full blown boots on the ground invasion.
Even if they invaded, again, I'm not your military expert to verify this, but my impression is that it would not take more than a few weeks to destroy the key infrastructure of the Gulf. Desalination plants are not hidden from view. Everything is known where everything is. These are not mobile assets. They are incredibly vulnerable, static assets, and they are life and death assets, actually. So I think that this is, unless somehow secretly, feverishly, and I don't even think it's technically possible, but I don't think it's logistically possible, that all of this is, being protected and souped up with anti-missile systems and anti-drone systems. I think the basic point is there is deterrence.
street lights dripping on an empty road. Whiskey in my hand, carrying a heavy load. Smoke hangs low in a room half lit. I still taste your name every time I sip. I wear my blues like a midnight suit. Black tie sorrow, hard to loosen. Neon shines, but it can't cut through. This city's cold and I'm missing you. Piano crying in the back of the bar. Rain on the window, red tail lights and cars. I laugh real low just to hide the truth. Every late night song keep leading to you. I wear my blues like a midnight suit. Black tie sorrow, hard to loosen. Neon shines, but it can't cut through. This city's cold and I'm missing you. Is the afterglow. I wear my blues like a midnight suit. Black tie sorrow, hard to loosen. Neon shines, but it can't cut through. This city's cold